It's been about 2 weeks now, but I still can't believe how it ended for our boys in blue here in 2024. That was awesome. Hello viewers, my name is Aaron with another edition of Chill Talk here on the channel pertaining to a topic that is very near and dear to my heart. I'm about as passionate about this as Xena and Hercules and Bruce Lee and everything else I have talked about thus far. So without any further ado, let's dive into a lifelong Dodger fan's journey to the 2024 World Series Championship. In order for us to really understand where I'm coming from when it pertains to the Los Angeles Dodgers and my fandom for the ball club, we have to start at the very beginning, when I was born, 1993. Growing up in the mid to late 90s, my earliest memories of being a Dodger fan are actually in Dodger Stadium, maybe 3 or 4 years of age. My first time going into Dodger Stadium, my father always likes to tell me that the crowd noise scared the heck out of me, so he had to take me inside one of those restaurants at the stadium in order to keep the noise level down and for me to enjoy what I'm seeing on the field. And it was there where I started to pay attention to all the players running around trying to catch the ball, and I thought to myself, hey, this is pretty cool. So I was blessed to be born in a family filled with Dodger fans, both on my father's side and my mother's side. As a matter of fact, on my mother's side, my late grandfather, I would say, is a big reason why I continue to be a huge fan of the team to this very day, because every time I'd visit my grandparents over on my mother's side, it always seemed as if that is all he wanted to talk about. Dodgers, and Doyers. And I certainly didn't mind that because I liked watching the games myself. And so every time we went over there, it was a blast. And every time I went to Dodger Stadium after that initial experience, it was really fun, because then I started to become acclimated with the whole crowd noise and it didn't bother me anymore. And two of my fondest memories from the early 2000s going to Chavez Ravine were 2 games in which Eric Gagne was able to close out the final 3 outs in the 9th inning. The first one was in 2002. We were on the right field side, first base side, and we were in the seats that were sandwiched in between the field level and then those giant blue ones that were right below the top deck, way above the stadium. In those middle seats, that's where we were for the first save. And then the second time was in the 2003 season, and I'm pretty sure it was during Eric Gagne's giant 80-plus game streak of saves. And we were right there close to the left field foul pole, which meant we got a good look at the bullpen each and every inning that went by. And right before the 9th, when it was time for Eric Gagne to come out, those giant doors opened up. Guns N' Roses' Welcome to the Jungle blared across the system all over the stadium, and he jogged in and the crowd went berserk. That was one of the coolest memories in a year in which they did not even make the playoffs. As a matter of fact, from 96 to 2003, actually from 1997 to 2003, there were no playoff appearances for the LA Dodgers, and it seemed as if somebody else in the division would always win it, whether it was the Giants or the Diamondbacks. It was somebody other than the Dodgers, and it was frustrating until 2004. And that's where we pick it up with my grandfather on my mother's side again. And we were at my grandparents' house in 2004, and it happened to be the final game where the Dodgers were facing the San Francisco Giants. And it may have been one of those weird series where it was 4 games, but you started on Friday night, and then Saturday, Sunday, and then that weird Monday 4th game. But anyway, this was a Sunday, and it was a day game. And I remember seeing the game with my father and my maternal grandfather. And here we are. It's 3-0, top of the 9th, or actually the bottom of the 9th. And when it seemed as if the offense was not going to score anything, quickly get the bases juiced, and up comes Steve Finley, the former San Diego Padre and also the former Arizona Diamondback, and he had the opportunity to hit a grand slam and not only win the game for the Dodgers, but clinch the National League Western Division for the first time in my lifetime. He comes up to the plate and hits that grand slam, and I went berserk with my father and my grandfather. We're all giving each other high fives. One of my earliest memories, and that was pretty epic. But it didn't stop there in 2004, thanks to the late Jose Lima. It was Lima time! Game 3 at Dodger Stadium, 2004 National League Division Series against the St. Louis Cardinals. The Cardinals came in with a 2-0 lead, and it seemed as if the Dodgers were going to get swept, but Jose Lima said, no, we're not. And he pitched a complete game that was completely electrifying to witness on television with my parents in the living room. I still remember we were watching on one of those giant television screens that was about 8 feet back and 5 feet wide, and you needed to have 15 people help you to get it in the house because it was so heavy, those big TVs. And every single moment of that game was superb. My amazement would only increase, and I'd be going, wow, how is he getting all these outs? This is so cool. Anyway, Dodgers win that game, and that was the first playoff win since 1988, I believe, because they were there in 95 against the Cincinnati Reds, got swept, and then they were swept by Atlanta in the following year in 96. So that was a huge moment for Dodger history again. Another one of my fondest memories growing up as a fan, and I am so happy, especially now since a few years after this game. I think it was in 2010, so it was more than a few years. That was when we got the announcement that Jose Lima had passed away, and I'm still shocked by that. I really am. So rest in peace, Lima time. I'm happy to say that among the many baseballs I've collected over the years for being a fan of this team, one of them has Jose Lima's autograph. Thank you so much for that, Dad. That is still one of the coolest things in my possession to this day. So that brings us to 2005, and there's not much to talk about here because it was an abysmal season for the boys in blue. I believe they were 71 and 91, and I did get to go to one game during that year. Edwin Jackson was the starter for the Dodgers, and he got smacked around, and I still remember the crowd there were vicious toward our starting pitcher that night. Come on, Edwin, you can't get it now. What's wrong with you, Jackson? Boo! So even though the Dodgers got smacked around that evening, it was still cool to go to Chavez Ravine to see All-Star Jeff Kent. I believe he was the only All-Star for the Dodgers that year. And Hee-Seop Choi, who came over via trade. It was a Paul LaDuca trade, I believe, to the Florida Marlins. And Hee-Seop was coming back to LA, and so did Brad Penny, who was pretty good for the Dodgers for a couple of years. But that night in 05 wasn't all that great, and the year itself was pretty forgetful as well. But that brings us to the offseason of 2005. We have a general manager who was recently hired named Ned Colletti, and one of the many moves he made that particular offseason was signing my all-time favorite baseball player of all time, Nomar Garciaparra, to a 1-year deal. And I was so excited when I read this news on the newspaper back then, because there was a moment in 2000, I believe, when our household got our very first computer, and I had access to a Triple Play 99 demo disc, which gave me access to the Home Run Derby. So there I am one day, scrolling through the roster and seeing who I can recognize from watching the games on television, and my father walks by the computer screen, looks there, and goes, "Hey Aaron, that Nomar Garciaparra guy? He's from Whittier, like us?" It was over. From then on, even though I didn't watch him for another 5 or so years after that because he was at Boston and then went to the Chicago Cubs, he instantly became my favorite player of all time right there. So you can imagine my excitement when he signed to play with the Los Angeles Dodgers. And not only was it amazing during that offseason, but during the season too, Nomar was the comeback player of the year, made the All-Star team during one of those last-minute vote processes prior to All-Star weekend that year. And I remember talking to another one of my buddies during the summer break and saying, dude, are you gonna vote for Nomar? Vote for Nomar, dude, do it for me. Anyway, he made it and it was awesome. And that was a year in which it's probably, aside from Game 6 of 2020 World Series and then the recent Game 5 of 2024, this game right here is my favorite Dodger game ever. That was the September 18th, 2006 game against the San Diego Padres, in which Dodgers were down 9-5 in the ninth inning, but Jeff Kent, J.D. Drew, Russell Martin, and Marlon Anderson all hit home runs in succession to tie the game up 9-9. But then the Padres get another run during extra innings, and then in the bottom of the 10th, you have Kenny Lofton going to first base via walk, and that brings up Nomar Garciaparra with a chance to walk it off for the boys in blue, and he does exactly that. Every now and again, I go back to watch the highlights of that game, and it's as if I was watching it for the very first time as a 13-year young boy, and my goodness, that was incredible. And the fact that Nomar got the walk-off home run that night was the cherry on top of an amazing cake. That was wonderful, and another one of my fondest memories growing up watching this team. So from there, we all know how it ends. You go against the New York Mets in the division series and get swept. So that part of it sucked, but at least making the playoffs again after an abysmal 2005 was pretty cool. 2007, not much happened there, but then you get to 2008, and that is when Ned Colletti makes the big trade for Manny Ramirez, who arrived from Boston after winning the championship with them the previous year in 2007 against the Colorado Rockies, and he electrified Dodger Stadium immediately to the point where in that left field foul pole area, there was an exclusive area dedicated to Manny Ramirez called Mannywood. It was about as electric as when Eric Gagne would come out to close the game. That's how much of an excitement was brought over to Los Angeles as soon as Manny Ramirez came over to the Dodgers. And as if it couldn't get any better, you go into the first round against the Chicago Cubs led by Lou Piniella. And the Dodgers managed to sweep a team who had several more wins than them during the regular season. I mean, it wasn't even close. Game 3 was probably the closest, but even that game, it seemed as if the Cubs were so far away from winning. And once the final pitch from Jonathan Broxton crossed home plate and everybody was going crazy, it settled and dawned upon us Dodger fans that this was the first time the Dodgers won a playoff series in 20 years, since 1988 when they defeated the Oakland A's in the 1988 World Series. So that was yet another cool moment to witness, and that's where the good times would end for us Dodger fans, because in 5 games after that in the championship series, the Philadelphia Phillies, your eventual champions that year, would take out the Dodgers. And the thing that stings about that one the most for me, I mentioned Nomar earlier. He happened to be the final out for the Phillies in that series. A pop fly on the infield, and I think it was Carlos Ruiz who caught it, the catcher. And yes, that was quite a disappointment. There was such a wave of momentum from that Manny trade going into the playoffs. It really seemed as if the Dodgers were at least going to make it to the World Series against those Tampa Bay Rays, but nevertheless, it did not happen. 2009, we had another shot. You have a spectacular season and go into the first round against the St. Louis Cardinals, and I still remember Game 2 in particular when Mark Loretta scored the winning run in the 9th inning. And I was listening to the radio broadcast at that particular point because I was in the middle of doing some homework at the same time. And even on the radio broadcast, you could barely hear the announcers because that's how loud it got at Chavez Ravine. That was an incredible moment, and the Dodgers sealed the sweep in spectacular fashion over in St. Louis 3-0, and then you have another rematch with the Philadelphia Phillies. And at that time for me, as a Dodger fan, I'm excited because growing up, seeing the Dodgers play over at Angel Stadium was something else I got to experience, and that was also cool. So imagine my excitement when it's Angels Yankees in the ALCS that year, and then Dodgers Phillies again. So I'm thinking it's gonna be cool either way, as long as the Dodgers make it to the World Series. Either Dodgers Angels, which would be cool as a Southern California sports fan, or for baseball history's sake, we get Yankees Dodgers. That would be so cool. But the Phillies won again. Look, I love the Philly fanatic, but that should have been the Dodgers Yankees, not the Phillies Yankees. But anyhow, another good year that didn't end in a championship. So that was unfortunate. But after a few years of not getting into the playoffs, 2010, 2011, and 2012, finally in 2013, we go to the playoffs once again. The Dodgers open up the first round against the Atlanta Braves, a team that they had history with dating back to 1996 in the playoffs. And this is where I got my first opportunity to attend a playoff game. Thanks to one of my family members on my father's side had a couple extra tickets, so Dad and I went over with them to Game 3 of the NLDS against the Atlanta Braves. It was tied at 1 apiece headed into that game, and I remember it was Hyunjin Ryu who started, and one of the moments that is still fresh in my mind was Carl Crawford coming to the plate and hitting that home run directly to the Braves bullpen. I turned around to one of my cousin's friends that he brought over to the game, and I told him, hey, it's so awesome that he hit it over there, because it's as if they are saying, we don't care who you send from that bullpen, we'll take on any one of them, and we will send the baseballs directly back to that bullpen to let you know we're not scared of any of them. So that was amazing. Dodgers ended up winning that game 13-6, and I'm still amazed that I have these pictures from that night here, but it was such a cool moment, my first playoff game, and the Dodgers got the victory, so what's not to love about that? Dodgers ended up winning that series thanks to Juan Uribe's heroics. But then you go into the championship series against those Cardinals, another team you have some history with dating back to 2009, and the Cardinals get their revenge, which sucks because that year we could have gotten the Dodgers and the Red Sox. But alas, it didn't happen. At least it was a good playoff run considering that they hadn't been in the playoffs a couple years before that. So it is what it is. This is where it started, the whole let's win the NL West every year and not come away with a championship. 2014 stung, man. Kershaw had a good game going, a lot of runs were being scored, but then all of a sudden, Cardinals came back, and I still remember being so dumbfounded looking at the TV screen wondering, okay, why is this happening right now? You can go back, and Don Mattingly definitely left Kershaw in there far too long, but man, that one really stung too. And it was with the Cardinals again, the same damn Cardinals. 2015, it's another rematch. The New York Mets in the division series, and you had a little bit of a better pitching scenario for the Dodgers headed into that one, but it was still a really good Mets team. We know how it ended. Game 5, Dodgers after Kershaw pitches a good Game 4, and you get it to Zach Greinke for Game 5. But the Mets were 1 run better on this particular evening, and at 3-2 the final score, Dodgers are eliminated again from the division series, and that one did sting as well, but I don't think it stung nearly as much as the previous year, because at least in this one it was tied 2-2 and you had a good shot at it with a really good pitcher on the mound, whereas the other one, damn, I felt like they got smacked around. Even though there were some innings where they had some chances, still, it was 3-1. So 2015 also stung, but here we go with 2016, and this is where, for that particular core of guys, where I felt, okay, if they can make it to the World Series, that they have that fire in them. I know one of these years they're going to push through, dude. It has to happen, because it was 2016, the NLDS against the Washington Nationals. Again, it's 2-2. But this time, Game 5 takes place over at the National Stadium. And wow, seeing that game as intense as it was, Jansen being in there, I think it was in the 7th inning and then the 8th inning. It was similar to Blake Trinan this year in 2024, where he was brought in the 7th inning, I believe. We'll get to that later, but Jansen was there, over 40 pitches, and then Dave Roberts, in his first year, by the way, after Mattingly was let go at the conclusion of 2015, Dave Roberts was hired for the 2016 season, and this was also Vin Scully's final year on the microphone for the Dodgers, which ended quite nicely thanks to Charlie Culberson's home run. But here we are in Game 5 against those Nationals, and Dave decides to put in Clayton Kershaw to get the close. 4-3 in favor of the Dodgers, and he gets a pop-up for the second out, and then the final out. Man, after being on edge, pitch after pitch, I mean, basically the whole game, but especially during the late innings, nail-biting time, basically. But they come away with the victory, and that was the first time I said, if they go far, they're going to bring home a championship soon. It's inevitable. But it wasn't to be in 2016 because the Chicago Cubs were on another trajectory that year. And so they were eliminated in 6 games, the Dodgers were, by those Cubbies. So it is what it is, but 2017, at least we did get some revenge on those Cubs after a convincing sweep against the Arizona Diamondbacks, a very good Arizona Diamondback team, by the way. But the Dodgers in 2017 were a monster team, and I still think that team and then this year's team in 24 are probably the best teams that they've had in this entire playoff run. But hey, 2017 was incredible. We all know what happened there in terms of the World Series, and this is where I come back to my maternal grandfather here, because this was my first opportunity to watch a World Series game with them in that same living room where we saw Steve Finley hit that grand slam back in 2004. But the problem was I picked Game 5. Goodness gracious, back and forth. It seemed as if 4-0 with Kershaw on the mound, these guys are going to cruise to a shutout victory. But then, grand slam, home run by the Dodgers again to get the lead. Astros tie it again, and oh, goodness. Even though you have that great moment in the 9th with Chris Taylor hitting that single to bring in Austin Barnes, which is still, whoa, just thinking about that moment right now gives me the chills. But still, you end that game in defeat, 13-12 in favor of Houston, and we all know how it ends from there. It ends in 7 games, bitterly against the Astros at Dodger Stadium, no less, and that was abysmal, pretty abysmal. But the fact that I was able to see a World Series game with Gramps after growing up and watching games with him quite a bit, that was truly special. 2018, you get another shot. This time we don't have Corey Seager, but we do have Manny Machado via trade at the trade deadline. And this was after the Matt Kemp and Manny Machado picture during the All-Star game. And then Manny comes in, Dodgers have another playoff run, once again in the division series against the Atlanta Braves. And this was my second opportunity to attend a playoff game at Dodger Stadium, and I still have the baseball that I got that evening. It was Game 2, October 5th, 2018. I still have that baseball marked with those facts, and it was a game dominated by Clayton Kershaw. He almost won a complete game, but Dave Roberts elected to go to the bullpen for the final 3 outs, to the dismay of the crowd, by the way, because prior to that inning where he finally got taken out, Kershaw is sitting in the dugout. There's a camera on him, so we're all in the stadium watching him. And then the crowd slowly goes, Kershaw, Kershaw. And then the volume goes up and up. And then eventually it's all 50+ thousand people going, Kershaw, Kershaw. And then Kersh runs out to the mound, and we're all going, yeah, finish the game, finish the game. And then moments later, Dave Roberts comes out and they're boo. Boo, lead up now. I can't even speak. It was such a cool moment, but let him in, leave him in. He can get the final 3. But anyway, 2-0 that particular game. Dodgers got the victory, and even though in Game 3 they blew it, Game 4, they sealed the deal and defeated the Braves 3-1. And then the Milwaukee Brewers series. Man, that Game 4 where Cody Bellinger finally got Manny Machado home. Prior to that moment, though, I was on pins and needles. Come on, somebody score a run. What the hell? And then once that Bellinger hit happened, I'm like, yeah! I'm laying on my bed like, finally, yeah! Tremendous. So that playoff run was cool until you get to the World Series. And this is where I thought to myself, let me go to Grandpa's house with Dad again and watch a World Series game, and this time it's gonna be better. Here is the thing. The game I decided to make that happen was Game 4. Yeah, Game 4. The game in which Yasiel Puig hit that big 3-run homer. It's 4-0, but Dave Roberts takes out Rich Hill, and somehow the Red Sox win 9-6. Darn it. That one stung more than Game 5 the previous year, to be honest with you. But at the very least, I could say I have 2 games that I saw with Gramps, and meant and still does mean a heck of a lot to me. But no championship. So that brings us to 2019, and all I'll say about that is hearing California Love on the radio broadcast, and then shortly being told by Charlie Steiner that it's 7-3 in favor of the Nationals. I'm thinking, why is Jansen in this game now? Hearing that song with them down 4 runs sounds, it's an oxymoron. It's a misnomer. What is the deal here? That's all I have to say about that. 2019 was bleh. So anyway, here we go. 2020, and this is the shortened season. We all know why. There's a big old shutdown all over the world. Shortened season, 60 games, but it was finally a year in which, as a Dodger fan, it was good to witness the entire playoff run blaze through the Brewers. You breeze through the Padres. It's a sweep. Both the Brewers and Padres were swept. And then you go to the championship series. It didn't look so good in the beginning because the Dodgers were down 3-1 against the Atlanta Braves. But then the comeback happens. 4-3, Dodgers win. That was amazing. And finally, after an abysmal Game 4 of that World Series, in which Dodgers were up 7-6 with 2 outs, 2 strikes, Jansen's on the mound. All you need is one more strike. And freaking Brett Phillips gets that hit. And despite the fact that Randy Arozarena did a backflip, landed on his noggin, but still flipped over, and it seemed as if, he's a sitting duck, tag him out. Well, the ball got past Will Smith, the catcher, and despite that mishap by Arozarena, he still manages to score. And that was probably the lowest point for yours truly as a Dodger fan. I was... This. Dude, what happened? What the hell was that? There were no words. It was such a stupid ending. As a baseball fan, it's a classic game, of course, and inches. Man, if Will Smith catches that ball, holds on to it, maybe we're going to extra innings here, but man, that sucked. However, undeterred, I still went up to my dad and said, I still got a good feeling about this. Let's go to Grandma and Grandpa, let's go see this game with them. So it is Game 5. It was the game in which Kershaw did pitch. It was a tight game, very tight game. 4-2 was the final score. Blake Treinen got the save that night. And finally, the third try-in saw a World Series victory with my grandpa. And as they were up 3-2, I turned to my grandma and I said, hey, we're going to come back for Game 6. Is that okay? And she said, oh, yes, by all means, come back. We'll watch it again and we'll see if they win it that night. And so that's what we did. But this time, a couple of my cousins came over as well. A couple of my uncles there as well. It was just like a big old party, one of those get-togethers we would have when I was a little kid. So there we are, counting the the moments and the outs down, because it was 1-0 in which seemed like forever until the 6th inning, and that's when Austin Barnes gets the hit off Blake Snell, and Kevin Cash takes out Snell. And you know Blake is still pissed about this. takes it out, and you all know the rest. 2-1 Dodgers, and then Mookie Betts hits that homer after that big old trade in the offseason. Mookie hits the clinching home run. They were in the lead already, but after that homer to make it 3-1, that's when you knew, all right, they're going to win it. Right here, tonight, this is it. And so, as I'm watching there with my entire family, the ones who were there, my grandpa suddenly had to get up and go to his room because he was tired, so he had to go rest. He went over to his bedroom, and he had a giant television right there on the dresser, so he was still watching, but he had to take a break. And so once the 9th inning came around, everybody else was in the living room, but I got up because I said to myself, there is no way I am missing these final 3 outs for a championship with Gramps. So I run over there, and we witness the final 3 outs. And I'm still getting chills remembering this. But as soon as the 3rd out happened, my Gramps, he turned into a 10-year-old kid. I mean, that big smile on his face, it's almost as if his eyes were sparkling too. Oh! I go over to him, Grandpa, we did it, and give him high fives and everything, and everybody's screaming in the living room, and then I run over to the living room, yo, we finally did it. The 2020 championship, that was the first time as a Dodger fan I got to witness them win it all. Shortened season and all, it was still a special time, and probably my fondest memory of my whole fandom for this team right there was of everything, all the family there, and all the memories that I have growing up at Dodger Stadium and blah, blah, blah. Finally, a championship, and it was incredible. From there, 21 through 23, no championships to speak of, but in the middle of those years, there were 2 people who passed away who had a large impact on my life. The first of which being the late great Vin Scully, who was my second all-time favorite announcer regardless of sport, right behind Chick Hearn, who I also still miss 20 plus years after he passed away, and that was quite sad. I remember hearing the news on the radio broadcast that evening, and Rick Monday was the one who broke it, and he was doing all he could to fight back the tears, you can tell. And I don't blame him, because that's how much Vin meant to so many of us in Los Angeles. So rest in peace, Vin Scully. Rest in peace to Chick Hearn as well. Huge Laker fan growing up, so of course he's also up there for me. And also, around the time where the Dodgers had that blunder against the San Diego Padres, that is when my maternal grandfather passed away. So as bad as it was to see the Padres beat the Dodgers in the first round that year, it stung even more to have to say goodbye to my grandpa after all those memories of watching the games with him growing up, and especially the World Series games that we got to witness. Got to see them win a championship before he passed. And so anytime you have somebody who's tried to discredit the 2020 championship, I know I'm not the only one who has a similar story to that, where we had family members growing up and we watched World Series games wondering when the Dodgers were finally going to win, and some of us lucky ones got to see them win with that family member before he passed away. It means a lot more to fans like us when we could share a story like that. So yeah, 2020 is legit, and that's all I have to say about that. That brings us to 2024, and we all know how it happened. Shohei Ohtani signed in the offseason. Teoscar Hernandez signed in the offseason. Enrique Hernandez, the former Dodger, comes back home and signs during spring training, thank goodness. And we're off to the races. We all know how it went. 98 wins in the regular season. You had big trades in July with Michael Kopech and Tommy Edman coming over to the Dodgers, and those 2 guys ended up being big for the ball club during the immaculate postseason run that was the 2024 playoffs. The Dodgers get revenge on those San Diego Padres for the 2022 divisional series. 3-2, you get the victory. Games 4 and 5 were epic because the San Diego Padres did not score a single run during those games. and you seal it at Dodger Stadium, so you take care of that business. And then you face the New York Mets in the championship series for the first time since 1988, and finally an opportunity to get some revenge for 2006 and 2015, and the Dodgers do exactly that in 6 games, and once again clinch a playoff series at Chavez Ravine. This time you win the National League pennant at Dodger Stadium, and that was truly remarkable. And as if it couldn't get any better, Dodgers, Yankees, a series I had been waiting for since 2009, and even in 2017 there was a good shot of it being Dodgers-Yankees in that particular year. But here in 2024, we got it. And it starts off with that walk-off grand slam. After some mishaps on the field by the Dodgers, you get the bases loaded in the 10th inning against Nestor Cortes. And Freddie Freeman has himself a moment of moments. And I have to say, all due respect to Kirk Gibson for the 1988 Game 1 home run against Dennis Eckersley, because that is and always will be an iconic moment, not only in Dodger history, but in baseball history. But what made Freddie's home run stand out on its own was the fact that this was against the Yankees. Enough said. And then you get the victory in Game 2, so it's off to the Bronx, up 2-0, and this is where history is made, starting with Game 3, Walker Buehler, a man who I've been a huge fan of ever since 2018. It really started during that 163rd game against the Colorado Rockies to determine a champion of the National League Western Division, and that's something you're certainly never going to see again, thanks to some decisions in regards to the playoff format by Major League Baseball. Dodgers won behind an excellent start from Walker Buehler, and ever since then, he's made his mark in Dodger history. And here he is again, and behind some solid defense and some questionable base running by the Yankees, goes 5 solid innings, and the Dodgers are up 3-0. So after whatever Game 4 was, here we are in Game 5, and this is where, at first, it looks putrid. 5-0, and you have your best dudes in the bullpen coming up for the Dodgers. Who in the world is going to close this at the rate they're going right now? But then we get to that 5th inning, and who would have thunk it? 5 is my favorite number. Down 5. This is where the Dodgers come back to tie the game at 5. And then a couple innings later, after the Yankees scored another run to make it 6-5, Dodgers get some sacrifice flies from Gavin Lux and Mookie Betts to make it 7-6. So remember earlier when I mentioned the Tampa Bay Rays and the 2020 World Series, specifically Game 4? That was the score with only 1 strike to get with Kenley Jansen on the mound, 7-6. And I was about to mention this to my father as we were intently watching this game, but I decided to keep it to myself, and thank goodness I did. Blake Treinen gets those final 2 outs after Dave Roberts went to the mound, pounded him on the chest, and said, "Hey man, you're my guy, you're gonna get these final 2 outs, so do it." And he did. And shortly before all of this stuff was going on, we saw none other than Walker freaking Buehler in the bullpen, and suddenly I got flashbacks to the 2016 National League Division Series against the Nationals, where it was a similar situation with Jansen throwing those innings prior to Clayton Kershaw being brought in to close it out. Here we had Blake Treinen handing it off to Walker Buehler, and my goodness, so much in that 9th inning that we can describe in terms of how much this meant to so many of us Dodger fans. But I'll skip over to the final out. It's Walker Buehler against the man who the Dodgers traded to get Mookie Betts over to Los Angeles prior to the 2020 championship season, Alex Verdugo, and this is one of the many people who attempted to discredit the 2020 championship for it being a shortened season. It wasn't 162 games, whatever, that one don't count. Well, guess what? Somebody who was on that championship squad, Walker Buehler's on the mound, and he's gonna make you look silly while striking you out. And that's exactly what happened. Goodness gracious, that pose that Walker Buehler does after the final pitch. Are you not entertained? If Buehler doesn't get a statue at Dodger Stadium in that exact pose, there's a problem. But Dodgers win the championship. Everybody goes crazy all over my neighborhood, all over Southern California, and I'm sure in isolated portions of the rest of the world. Dodger Blue fans have a moment of rejoice. It was really special for me as well, because finally, after all these years of hearing my dad describe what it was like for him growing up watching Steve Garvey, Ron Cey, Bill Russell, and Davey Lopes, he got to see Dodgers Yankees not once, not twice, but 3 times, 77 and 78, and to this day he's very bitter about those 2 defeats, but at least in 81 he finally got to see the Dodgers beat the Yankees in the World Series, so he got to see them 3 times in the Fall Classic prior to this moment, and this was my first time I got to see Dodgers Yankees in my lifetime, and on the first attempt, my team wins 4-1, and it's so cool that I was able to share not only the Game 5 ending with my father, but the whole playoff run. It was me and him most of the time. My mother would come in and out of the living room because it was so intense for her. Oh, I can't take it. So she would go off somewhere else. But yes, my father and I got to share some memories that will last for the rest of our lives. And I'm sure I'm not the only one who has a similar story to that. If that's you out there, hey, the Dodgers beat the Yankees in the World Series. I'm still so excited about how that entire season went down. I'm holding my World Series championship hat right now. It's freaking epic. And after a season that was such a roller coaster and involved me going to Dodger Stadium as a birthday gift with my father, it was the September 11th, 2024 game, the final game of a 3-game series against the Chicago Cubs. And what made this night extremely special for me was several things that I got to witness prior to the entire game itself. First of all, before the game, I'm waiting by the station where Sportsnet LA does their pregame shows at the stadium, because I have to meet Nomar, my favorite all-time player. I got a chance to meet him, and there I am with him. Look, it happened. And I got him to sign one of my big XL Nomar Garciaparra size shirts, because I used to be a lot bigger back in high school when I had that shirt. I lost a lot of weight since then, so I brought it over to him. It's a blue one, and he signed it for me, and it was really cool to finally meet him, even though it was so quick because he had other stuff to do, so I couldn't really describe to him what it meant to me to be able to meet him after all these years, him being my favorite player. We're both from Whittier, blah, 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 blah. That was a special moment, but as if it couldn't get any better, all of a sudden, Ned Coletti comes over to that table area, and after he says his hellos to the crew, he's walking away, and a couple of us get some time to talk to him and take pictures with him, and there I am with Ned Coletti. So that time period where I was in middle school and into high school, that was where he was the general manager and making a lot of those big moves that would eventually end up in a championship, such as drafting Clayton Kershaw. Goodness. That all happened prior to the game on that September 11th, and those were 2 awesome birthday gifts. But it got even better during the game because I was there to witness Shohei Ohtani's 47th home run out of the 54 he ended up hitting that year overall. And also, because I'm still a big fan of his no matter what, without him hitting that home run in Game 7 of the 2020 National League Championship Series against the Atlanta Braves, who knows what would have happened. But Cody Bellinger came up big for Los Angeles, really, the entire team, but the entire city as well, and was instrumental in helping the Dodgers win that 2020 championship. So, during this game, it was 7-4 in favor of the Dodgers, and Cody Bellinger hits an opposite field 3-run homer to tie the game. And while there's a lot of moaning and groaning from the fans during that moment, I'm going, hey, that was cool, woo! Bellinger, he gave me a homer on my birthday even though he's on the other team, woo! That was tremendous. Dodgers ended up winning that game 10-8. A barn burner of a game, really good game. And yes, that also happened this year for me, and one of my fondest memories as a Dodger fan thus far. I'm going to remember it for the rest of my life. And what a season, man. What a time it's been for us Dodger fans. And really, I couldn't be more thankful and grateful. All the memories I have shared with you here today. I know I was all over the place like a whirling dervish, but hey, so many memories, and I'm sure when I listen back to this, there are going to be certain things that I didn't bring up, and oh shoot, I didn't mention this, oh, I didn't mention that, darn it. But I think we're going to leave it there. It was a barn burner of a season this year. It's been a heck of a journey growing up following this team, and we still have plenty of years to go here, and we'll see what happens in 2025. But for right now, here in 2024, your Los Angeles Dodgers, my Los Angeles Dodgers, our Los Angeles Dodgers are the World Series champions, and here is to an immaculate 2024 offseason, and here is to an even better 2025, which will kick off against the Detroit Tigers in the home opener after those first 2 games against the Cubs in Japan. And yours truly will be at that home opener, which should be the ring ceremony to culminate a special season here in 2024. So I can't wait. Pop and I will be there. I love you, Dad. I love you, Grandpa. Rest in peace. Rest in peace to Vin Scully. Rest in peace to Fernando Valenzuela and everybody else who has passed away that has had something to do with this awesome baseball club we call the Los Angeles Dodgers. My name is Aaron. Thank you very much for watching. If you've made it thus far, please share your favorite Dodger memories in the comments section below. And sometime down the line, I may discuss this team a little bit more. But for now, I'll end it by saying this. Let's go Dodgers.